He then did what he did best. He kidnapped the priest, executed him, and dumped his body in the same woods he had dumped all his other victims.
Oh my god. Oh my god.
After my great-grandfather's demise, whatever ended his life went after my great-grandmother. There was a wooden cross with a sharp stake-like handle embedded into her chest. She was bleeding, but alive. She was taken to the hospital, and whenever someone asked her who did that, she would firmly say, Jesus, cut and filling the floor with blood. Statues of Jesus have killed my entire family. My great-grandfather was not a good person by any means. In the 30s, my country was under the iron grip of a violent dictatorship. And it's with great shame that I have to say he was deeply involved in it. My great-grandfather was a torturer and murderer working for a state that violated human rights and massacred its own population on a daily basis. Ironically, he was a very religious Catholic man and seemed to think there was no contradiction in going to the Mass in the morning and then going on and killing people in the afternoon.
What the fuck?
In the 40s, when the dictatorship was being toppled, my great-grandfather felt the cold breath of justice on his neck. And being a devout Catholic man, he had been telling all his dirty deeds to his priest. He then did what he did best. He kidnapped the priest, executed him, and dumped his body in the same woods he had dumped all his other victims.
Oh my god. Oh my god.
In a weird way, my great-grandfather escaped human justice, but not the justice of God. Or if not God, whatever has been slaughtering his descendants since then. No one denounced him, and his name was only publicized to be a ruthless state-sanctioned killer many decades after his death. However, even if most never knew who he really was, apparently someone did. He was found violently murdered a few years after the dictatorship was no more. His body had been crucified, his throat cut, and his eyes gouged out. Justitia caeca est, memoria aeterna est. Justice is blind, memory is eternal. It was written in blood on the wall next to his body.
Holy Jesus.
Yes, his body was in the church that the priests he killed used to preach, next to the altar, in the place the statue of Jesus used to be. The statue itself was never found. After my great-grandfather's demise, whatever ended his life went after my great-grandmother. She was living in a small farm in the countryside. I don't know if she just wanted to move to a rural zone, or if she was trying to escape from the ones who killed my great-grandfather. If it was the latter, it didn't work. In 1975, she was found crushed to death under the family's tractor.
Holy crap!
Written in blood on the door of her house, the same Latin words that were written near her deceased husband. Justitia caeca est, memoria aeterna est. My grandfather was next. In the late 80s, he suddenly came home, screaming that Jesus wanted to kill him. My grandmother told him to leave, believing he was drunk. He left, and that was the last time anyone saw him. And a few years later, the curse passed on to my grandmother. My father found her one day after coming back from school. There was a wooden cross with a sharp stake-like handle embedded into her chest. She was bleeding, but alive. She was taken to the hospital, and whenever someone asked her who did that, she would firmly say, Jesus. It happened again a few days later. She was found in the hospital's chapel, nailed to the cross on the wall, replacing the statue of Jesus, her wrists cut and filling the floor with blood. As she was already in a hospital, they managed to save her, and a police officer would then be on her hospital room at all times. The Jesus figure was never found. After this, my father's family would always be on the move. They were always renting different houses, moving around between states and cities. And only Protestant crosses were allowed in my grandma's vicinity. She managed to survive for a long time using these precautions, long into my father's adulthood. She also had 3 children before her husband disappeared, and all of them were aware of the curse, and this ended up benefiting me a lot in the long run. One day, even with all of her precautions, she had to attend a courthouse hearing as a witness. Despite the state being secular, for some reason, to this day, all courthouses have Catholic crosses. That means a cross with an image of Jesus. 3 days after the hearing, she was found dead with her neck horribly deformed. When they opened it, there was a mass of wood stuck in her throat.
Oh my god.
A mass that was actually the crumpled figure of Jesus. The cross in the courthouse was, of course, empty. Someone wrote the same old message on the wall under it with a knife. Justitia caeca est, memoria aeterna est. I was already born by that point, and I remember going to her funeral. It was either 2006 or 2007, a funeral that none of her children attended. No one knew who the curse would pass to then. And cemeteries, as everyone knows, are full of crosses and statues of Jesus. It turned out the curse passed on to her oldest child, my aunt. She didn't last long. 3 years after the funeral, she was found dead in her apartment. The door had been broken and someone had entered and beaten her to death. Her face was so destroyed they had to use teeth to confirm it was really her corpse. As per tradition, someone had written on the wall using blood, Justitia caeca est, memoria aeterna est. Yes, turns out one of her neighbors had a human-sized Jesus statue. A statue that was never seen again after the killing. She had no husband or children. This meant the curse would pass on to the next person of the bloodline. When my father was informed of the murder, he immediately knew he was next. With my great-grandmother, it took more than 20 years for the curse to get to her. With my grandfather, it took around 10. With my aunt, it took 3. The time span was getting shorter every time. If the pattern kept that way, he imagined, he'd have around a year or 2 at most before an angry Jesus statue was on his doorstep intending to kill him in a gruesome manner. After that, it would be my uncle's time, and then my mom, and finally, me. My father had a smart solution. He sold everything he had, bought a boat, and sailed away. I would only see him once or twice a year after this. During my birthday and his birthday, he briefly anchored his boat, and we went over there to see him. But as much as my mother loved him, she couldn't handle this type of long-distance relationship. They ended up divorcing, and my mother started dating another man, a very wealthy former federal agent. Maybe this would free her from the curse after all. Well, it didn't. I don't know how my father died, but when he stopped showing up, we figured that either Jesus had caught him or something equally bad happened. Regardless, when my uncle was found crucified in the ceiling of his office with the message Justitia caeca est, memoria aeterna est carved on his chest, we knew 2 things. 1, my father was dead. 2, the curse would soon be passed on to either me or my mother. My mother decided then to live the same way my grandmother did before she passed away. She bought a trailer, a shotgun, pistols, and started teaching me how to shoot. From then on, I would live with her and my stepdad on the road, never spending more than 3 days in the same city. And yet, we had close calls. Once, while we were sleeping, the windscreen shattered and I saw a very familiar man-sized figure entering the trailer. It moved its limbs, but it didn't blink or move its head. On its hand, it carried a large shard of glass. The Jesus statue headed towards my mother, ready to stab her. I grabbed one of the pistols and shot at the figure. The arm carrying the shard fell off its body, but it quickly crouched, grabbed the shard again, and once again moved towards my mother. My aim was not very precise, and I did not hit it this time. It managed to stab one of my mother's hands, cutting off 3 fingers, before my stepfather blasted the thing with the shotgun. We then grabbed the still contorting limbs in pieces and burned it all. There was also another time that we came even closer to dying. My stepdad was driving the trailer when out of nowhere, an out-of-control truck came at a very high speed behind us, almost crashing into our back.
Oh my god!
Oh my god!
Stepdad quickly skidded, almost overturning the trailer. For a few inches, we avoided the truck obliterating our vehicle. The truck violently crashed into a car that were in front of us in the road, causing an explosion, and the crash caused a lot of oil on fire to spread around the road. My mother and I grabbed our guns, knowing this could very well be the work of the curse. And indeed it was. From inside the burning truck, a wooden man-sized figure of Jesus came out, burning in flames and covered in oil, blood, and debris. Stepfather quickly pressed the pedal, and soon we were getting away from that place as fast as possible. What we didn't count is with how fast it was able to run. The trailer was reaching 80 kilometers per hour, and yet the burning statue was almost reaching us. My mother opened the back glass and shot at it with the shotgun. The bullets blasted off its head, but it kept running faster and faster, and it managed to catch up with us. The thing jumped inside the trailer, breaking the back glass and setting the carpet on fire. My mother shot it again, creating an enormous hole on its torso. Yet the Jesus image kept going, grabbing her shotgun and bending it with an impossible strength.
What the fuck?
I grabbed one of the pistols and shot it again, managing to destroy its legs. My stepfather then braked the car. The Jesus was thrown away towards the windscreen, shattering it and being thrown on the road. While I used the fire extinguisher, my stepfather made sure to run over it several times, until only broken pieces remained. After this incident, my mother decided to leave me on my stepfather's care and said farewell to me. We already had cell phones by this point, so I kept on constant contact with her. Every day she called. She would tell me how the attacks were getting more fierce and continual. The curse was intensifying, trying new tactics to get her. Disguised statues, multiple attackers, even one armed with a rifle once. She lasted for years. I managed to build a life for myself. I have a stable job, an apartment, and a girlfriend. But 7 days ago, she simply sent a message saying, "I'm sorry. Yesterday when the police knocked on my door, I was already expecting the news. What I didn't expect is how fast the curse would move on this time. They weren't knocking to tell me my mother had been murdered. They were knocking to tell me my stepfather had been brutally murdered.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow.
He had been stabbed more than 100 times.
Oh, that's
and someone
insane.
wrote with blood next to the body, Justitia caeca est, memoria aeterna est. There will be no 20, 10, or even 3 years for me. The thing is probably already coming. I broke up with my girlfriend, and I pray this will be enough to save her. There's a way to break the curse? I sincerely doubt I have enough time for that. Even if I'm terrified, I can only hope that the curse ends with me. I don't have the same willpower or strength my grandmother or mother had. I don't think I'll last a single encounter with the statues.